The cold morning air of late November bit through Grace's thin sweater as she pushed open the door of a small diner on Maple Street, holding her little girl's tiny hand. Her fingers trembled, not just from the chill, but from hunger, shame, and exhaustion. 3-year-old Lily clung to her mother, her big blue eyes wide with curiosity as the warmth of the diner wrapped around them. The smell of pancakes and coffee filled the air, and for a moment, Grace could almost forget how hard life had become. Her old car, the one they lived in, had refused to start that morning. It wasn't much of a home, but it was all they had after Grace lost her job and their apartment. She hadn't come into the diner to eat. She came for warmth, just for a few minutes, to breathe, to let Lily sit somewhere that didn't smell like cold metal and gasoline. They sat at a booth near the door, far from the crowd. Grace counted the coins in her pocket, barely enough to buy anything, but she hoped the waitress wouldn't ask her to leave. Lily's cheeks were red from the cold, her sweater thin, but her face still glowed with the kind of wonder only a child could have after so much hardship. "Maybe one day," Grace whispered softly, "we'll have breakfast here. Pancakes and syrup, just like in your storybooks." Lily's eyes drifted to a man sitting a few tables away. He was in his mid-30s, neatly dressed, with tired eyes that hinted at a different kind of sorrow. His name was Daniel Hart. To anyone else, he looked like a man who had it all together. But inside, he was quietly broken. A year ago, he'd lost his wife in a car accident. Since then, his life had become a blur of empty mornings and long, sleepless nights. He came to this diner every day because silence hurt too much. When his eyes met Lily's, he froze. She wasn't begging or smiling, just staring at his plate of pancakes and eggs with the kind of hunger no child should ever feel. Grace noticed and quickly took her daughter's hand. "Come on, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice tight. She didn't want pity. She'd had enough of people looking at her like a mistake. She stood to leave quietly, head down, hoping to escape unnoticed. But Daniel couldn't look away. He saw her trembling hands, her worn shoes, the child's pleading eyes. Something deep inside him stirred, a part of him that had been asleep since his wife's passing. He called the waitress over and said quietly, "Can you bring 2 more plates? The lady by the door, breakfast is on me." Grace stopped when she heard the waitress call out, "Ma'am, the gentleman over there said breakfast is taken care of if you'd like to sit." Her face flushed with embarrassment. She wanted to refuse, but when Lily tugged gently at her hand, she couldn't. Daniel offered a small, kind smile, no judgment, no pity, just warmth. They sat down. When the pancakes arrived, Lily's eyes sparkled. The smell alone made her giggle, and that sound, it was something Daniel hadn't heard in a long time. Grace whispered, "Thank you," her voice breaking. As Lily took her first bite, Grace turned away, wiping a tear before it fell. For a long while, none of them spoke. The hum of the diner filled the silence. Daniel watched Lily eat, and in her joy, he saw a piece of the woman he'd lost, his wife, Emma, who had believed in kindness no matter how cruel the world could be. He remembered how she used to say, "If you can help, you should." When breakfast was over, Grace tried to pay with the few coins she had. Daniel shook his head gently. "It's already taken care of," he said softly. Outside, he noticed the broken-down car parked by the curb. Without thinking, he offered to take a look. Grace refused at first, pride still holding her back, but when the engine failed to start, she let him help. Daniel rolled up his sleeves, worked quietly, and within minutes, the old car coughed back to life. Lily clapped, laughing. Grace smiled for the first time in a long while, a fragile, grateful smile. Daniel handed her a small folded note. "If you ever need help," he said simply. She hesitated but took it. That night, as rain poured down, she sat in the car staring at that note. Something told her to call. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was faith. Daniel answered right away. Within an hour, he was standing outside the car with an umbrella and 2 paper bags of food. He didn't ask questions. He just said, "You shouldn't be out here tonight." He brought them to a small guest house behind his late parents' farmhouse. It was warm, quiet, and safe. That night, Grace cried softly as Lily slept soundly in a real bed. Daniel stood outside the door, listening to the rhythm of her breathing, a sound he hadn't heard since his wife was alive. In the days that followed, Grace helped around the farmhouse. Daniel never asked her to, but every morning there was hot coffee and one of Lily's drawings taped to the fridge, 3 smiling stick figures holding hands. Mr. Daniel, Mommy, and me. Slowly, their grief began to heal each other. Grace learned that Daniel's quietness came from love lost, and Daniel learned that Grace's strength came from love never given up. Lily began calling him Uncle Dan. Winter turned to spring. Grace found a job at a nearby school, and Daniel fixed her car for good. Hope began to return, quietly, gently. One evening, Daniel came home to find Grace and Lily baking cookies. Lily looked up, giggling. Mr. Daniel, Mommy says we're staying here forever. Grace blushed, but Daniel only smiled. I'd like that, he said softly. That night, they had dinner together at the same diner where it all began. Only this time, Grace didn't hide. She laughed. Lily beamed. And Daniel's heart, once shattered, felt whole again. Sometimes, God doesn't send miracles. He sends people. Grace and Lily were Daniel's miracle, and he was theirs. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Because kindness costs nothing, but it can mean everything.